I never thought the two women I trusted most would conspire against me. My wife Jessica and I had what many would call the perfect life. Great house in Chicago, successful business, luxurious vacations, and plans to start a family. I even supported my mother financially after everything she sacrificed raising me alone. Then one ordinary Tuesday, I came home early and saw those messages on my wife's phone. The shock of discovering her affair was devastating enough, but nothing prepared me for my own mother taking her side. The woman who raised me, who I bought a house for and supported monthly, told me to forgive Jessica's betrayal so they could both continue living off my success. That day, I made the hardest decision of my life. Before I tell you how this unbelievable betrayal unfolded, drop a like if you have ever had to make a tough decision to put yourself first. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about finding strength when those closest to you let you down. Let me give you some background on how we got here. I am Harry, 35 years old, and the owner of a successful software consulting firm in Chicago. I grew up in a single-parent household with my mother Martha, after my father walked out when I was just 4. My childhood memories are filled with my mother working multiple jobs to support us, constantly reminding me of her sacrifices. We were closer than most mother and son relationships because it was just the two of us against the world, or so I thought. "Harry, everything I do for you," she would say whenever I complained about her long hours or missed school events. This phrase became etched in my mind, creating an unspoken obligation that would follow me into adulthood. Despite our financial struggles, I excelled academically and earned a scholarship to study computer science. After graduation, I started my own business, which grew rapidly over the next decade. As soon as I found financial stability, I made sure my mother would never worry about money again. I purchased a beautiful 3-bedroom house for her in a nice neighborhood, set up a generous monthly allowance, and covered all her major expenses. She finally retired from her administrative job, something she had dreamed of for years. "You are nothing like your father," she would tell me, which was her highest form of praise. I met Jessica at a charity gala 5 years ago. She stood out immediately, tall, with chestnut hair, intelligent hazel eyes, and a warm smile that lit up her entire face. She was a kindergarten teacher who was passionate about her work despite the modest salary. We connected instantly over shared interests in hiking, classic films, and community service. "I love that you care about making a difference," she told me on our second date. "Most successful men I meet only talk about their possessions." Our relationship progressed naturally, and 3 years after meeting, we had a beautiful wedding ceremony with my mother giving her blessing enthusiastically. I remember Martha hugging Jessica that day, whispering something in her ear that made both of them smile. I was thrilled that the two most important women in my life had bonded. After the wedding, Jessica continued teaching while I grew my business. The disparity in our incomes never seemed to bother her, and I happily covered our expenses so she could pursue her passion for education without financial worry. We traveled internationally. Twice a year, were renovating our dream home and had started discussing having children in the near future. There were subtle signs I missed or chose to ignore. Jessica began having more evening parent-teacher conferences than seemed normal. Her phone would ding with messages she would check quickly before putting it face down. She started spending less time with me on weekends, claiming she needed to prepare classroom materials. Physical intimacy became less frequent, often with excuses of exhaustion or headaches. What I found particularly strange was how close my mother and Jessica had become. They would go shopping together, have lunch dates, and speak on the phone several times a week. While I initially appreciated their bond, something about their private jokes and sudden silence when I entered rooms felt off. "We are just planning a surprise for you," Jessica would say when I questioned their secretive behavior. I trusted her explanation, because why would I suspect anything else? My mother began making odd comments about marriages, requiring compromise and understanding. "Men who focus too much on their careers often drive their wives to seek attention elsewhere," she said during one Sunday dinner, looking pointedly at me. I brushed off these remarks, attributing them to her bitter experience with my father. In retrospect, these were warnings I should have heeded, but I was blinded by my trust in both of them. The life I thought we were building was nothing but an elaborate facade maintained by my financial support and their careful deception. All the while I remained oblivious, working longer hours to provide the lifestyle they had grown accustomed to, never suspecting they were united not by love for me, but by what I could provide them. The day everything fell apart started like any other. I had an important client meeting scheduled for the afternoon, but it was unexpectedly canceled when the client had a family emergency. I decided to head home early, thinking I might surprise Jessica with dinner reservations at her favorite restaurant. When I arrived home around 3 in the afternoon, I heard the shower running upstairs. I called out to Jessica but got no response over the sound of the water. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, lighting up repeatedly with incoming messages. I normally would never check her phone, but something about the frequency of the notifications drew my attention. The messages were from someone named Jason P. The preview on the lock screen read, "Last night was amazing. Cannot wait to see you again tomorrow while he is at." My heart rate doubled instantly. I picked up the phone, finding it unlocked. My finger hovered over the message app for several seconds as I debated whether to invade her privacy. In that moment, a new message appeared. 8 months together and every moment gets better. You are so much more than a teacher to me. I felt physically ill as I opened the conversation. What I found was months of explicit messages, photos, and detailed accounts of their meetings, often planned around my business trips or late work nights. Jason was apparently the father of one of her students, a recently divorced man who had been pursuing my wife since a parent-teacher conference last fall. The timestamps showed messages from just hours ago, discussing their encounter the previous night when I was working late on a proposal. They had been together in our bed while I was providing for our family. I sat at the kitchen island, phone in hand, trying to process what I was seeing. The shower turned off, and a few minutes later, Jessica came downstairs in a bathrobe, her hair wrapped in a towel. She froze when she saw me. "Harry, you are home early," she said, her eyes immediately darting to her phone in my hand. I turned the screen toward her, showing the messages. "Who is Jason P.?" Her face crumbled. No denial, no excuses, just immediate tears. "Harry, I can explain. It is not what you think." "It looks exactly like what I think," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "You have been sleeping with another man in our home for 8 months. Jessica sank into a chair, her bathrobe falling open slightly. She quickly adjusted it, a gesture that seemed absurdly modest given the circumstances. "I was lonely," she finally said. "You are always working, always focused on the next client, the next project. Jason made me feel seen." The irony of her statement was not lost on me. I worked those long hours to provide the lifestyle she enjoyed. The vacations, the designer clothes, the freedom to work a job she loved, without financial pressure. All of it came from those hours she resented. "I want you to pack your things and leave," I said. Her tears stopped abruptly, replaced by something harder. "This is my home too. I am not leaving. If anyone should go, it is you. I paid for this house. My name is on the mortgage. And I am your wife. Half of everything is mine, including this house." Her voice took on a calculating tone I had never heard before. "If you force this, I will take half of everything you own in the divorce." I was stunned by this sudden transformation. The loving woman I thought I married was now threatening me financially. She reached for her phone, but I kept it out of her reach. "Give me my phone. I need to call your mother." "My mother? Why would you call her about this?" Jessica's expression shifted again, this time to a smug confidence. "Martha understands me. She knows what it is like to be married to a workaholic who does not prioritize his family." I could not comprehend what she was implying. My mother comparing me to my absent father, the man whose abandonment had shaped my entire life, whose mistakes I had vowed never to repeat. Before I could respond, Jessica grabbed the landline and dialed. I could hear my mother answer on the other end. "Martha, it is Jessica. Harry came home early. He saw the messages from Jason." A pause. "Yes, he knows everything. Can you come over? I need your support right now." I grabbed the phone from her. "Mom, what is going on? Do you know about Jessica's affair?" There was a long silence before my mother responded, her voice carefully measured. "Harry, you need to calm down and think rationally about this. Marriages have rough patches. Jessica made a mistake, but throwing away your relationship over one indiscretion is not the answer. One indiscretion. She has been sleeping with this man for 8 months. I am coming over," my mother said firmly. "Do not do anything hasty until I get there." The call ended, and I looked at Jessica in disbelief. My mother knew about this. Jessica nodded slowly, a small, victorious smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Martha understands that marriages are complicated. She has been very supportive of me through all of this." I felt as though the ground beneath me had disappeared. My wife's betrayal was now compounded by my mother's complicity. The two people I trusted most had formed an alliance against me, hiding secrets and apparently discussing my failings behind my back. As I waited for my mother to arrive, I scrolled through more messages on Jessica's phone, each one revealing a deeper level of deception. There were screenshots of bank statements I had sent Jessica, discussions about upcoming business trips that would give her time with Jason, and even jokes about how oblivious I was to their affair. The betrayal was not just sexual. It was a comprehensive deception that touched every aspect of our life together. And somehow, impossibly, my own mother was entangled in it all. 45 minutes later, my mother arrived at our house. I expected to see concern on her face, perhaps even disappointment in Jessica. Instead, she walked in with a determined expression, barely acknowledging me, before going straight to Jessica's side and putting an arm around her shoulder. "Harry, we need to discuss this like adults," my mother said, her tone reminiscent of how she spoke to me as a child when I had done something disappointing. "Every marriage faces challenges. Men like you, successful, driven, they often neglect their wives without realizing it." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you seriously defending her cheating on me?" "I am not defending it," my mother replied carefully. "I am explaining it. Jessica made a poor choice, but you created the environment that led to that choice." Jessica nodded along, seeming to gain confidence from my mother's support. "I tried to talk to you so many times about feeling neglected, but you were always too busy." When I demanded, "When did you ever sit me down and say you were unhappy enough to consider cheating?" my mother interrupted before Jessica could respond. "That is not how relationships work, Harry. Women should not have to explicitly state they need attention. A good husband senses his wife's needs." The unfairness of this statement was staggering. I was being blamed for not being a mind reader while Jessica was being absolved of an 8-month affair conducted in our home. "How long have you known about this, Mom?" I asked quietly. My mother shifted uncomfortably. "A few months." Jessica needed someone to talk to. "A few months. And you never thought to tell your own son that his wife was cheating on him?" "I hoped it would burn itself out," she said defensively. "These things often do. I did not want to ruin your marriage over what might have been a temporary infatuation." Something in her explanation rang false. There was more to this story than she was admitting. I turned to Jessica, who was now staring at the floor. "Tell me the truth, both of you. What is really going on here?" An uncomfortable silence filled the room before my mother finally spoke. "Harry, you need to understand something. The life you have provided for both of us means everything. Jessica made a mistake, but divorcing her would disrupt all our lives." And there it was. The real concern was not my happiness or the sanctity of my marriage, but the financial implications of a divorce. "So you want me to forgive her cheating so you can both continue to benefit from my success?" I asked incredulously. "That is a crude way of putting it," my mother sniffed. "I am thinking about your future, about the family you wanted to build with Jessica, about stability." A memory suddenly surfaced, one I had buried long ago. When I was 10, my mother briefly dated a man named Robert who treated her poorly. When I asked why she stayed with him, she replied, "He pays the bills, Harry." Sometimes that matters more than perfect happiness. I had forgotten that moment, but now it illuminated everything. My mother had always prioritized financial security over emotional well-being. She had taught Jessica to do the same. "How long have you been encouraging this, Mom? Did you actually tell Jessica it was okay to cheat on me?" My mother's silence was damning. "I did not encourage it," she finally said. "I simply told her that men like you, men like your father, are difficult to be married to. That sometimes women need to find comfort elsewhere while maintaining the marriage." The comparison to my father struck like a physical blow. "I am nothing like him. He abandoned us. I have supported both of you. Your father was physically absent. You are emotionally absent," my mother countered. "The result is the same." Jessica finally spoke up. "Jason understands me in ways you never have, Harry. He listens. He makes time for me." "Does he buy you Gucci bags and take you to Paris too?" I asked bitterly. Jessica flinched, but said nothing. "If you divorce Jessica," my mother said firmly, "I will testify on her behalf. I will tell the court how you neglected her, how your workaholic tendencies destroyed your marriage." This threat from my own mother felt like the final betrayal. The woman I had supported, whose house I had bought, whose retirement I had funded, was now threatening to help my cheating wife take half of everything I had built. "Why would you do that to me?" I asked, my voice breaking for the first time. My mother's expression softened slightly. "Because I cannot afford to lose what you provide, Harry. Neither can Jessica. We need you to forgive her and move forward." In that moment, the full truth of my relationship with both women became crystal clear. I was not a son or a husband to them. I was a provider, a financial resource to be protected at all costs, even at the expense of my dignity and happiness. Jessica moved closer to me, attempting to take my hand. "We can work through this, Harry. I will end things with Jason. We can go to counseling. Your mother is right, we should not throw away everything we have built." I pulled my hand away. "What exactly have we built, Jessica? A marriage where you sleep with another man in our bed, while I work to pay for your lifestyle, where you conspire with my mother against me. That is not a marriage worth saving." My mother stood up, her patience clearly wearing thin. "You are being dramatic. Men have endured far worse to maintain their families. If you truly love Jessica, you would forgive this indiscretion. This is not about love for either of you, is it?" I realized aloud. "This is about money. It has always been about money." Jessica and my mother exchanged a glance that confirmed everything. Their bond was not based on genuine affection, but on a shared interest in maintaining access to my wealth. "Tell me something, Jessica," I said, a new thought occurring to me. "Is Jason wealthy? Is that why you chose him specifically?" Jessica's hesitation told me everything. "He is a financial advisor," she finally admitted. "He has his own firm. We connected because he has the same drive you do, but he makes time for relationships too." "So you were test driving a potential upgrade," I concluded. "Someone with money who might give you more attention." My mother interjected quickly. "That is unfair, Harry. Jessica genuinely cares for Jason." "And what about me? Did either of you ever genuinely care for me?" Their silence was the loudest answer I had ever received. That night, after my mother and Jessica had both said their piece and retreated to separate rooms in the house, I lay awake reviewing every moment of my relationships with both women. How much had been genuine, how much had been calculation? The uncertainty was perhaps the most painful part of it all. By morning I had made my decision. I called in sick to work for the first time in years and contacted the most ruthless divorce attorney in Chicago, a woman known for her aggressive protection of high-earning spouses. I secured an emergency appointment for that afternoon. "Your prenuptial agreement has a morality clause," she informed me after reviewing the document. "If Jessica has been unfaithful, as you have evidence to prove, she forfeits any claim to alimony or equitable distribution beyond what she brought into the marriage." This was a relief I had not expected. In the whirlwind romance with Jessica, I had almost forgotten the prenuptial agreement my business partner had insisted upon. Jessica had signed it willingly, perhaps never intending to violate its terms or perhaps never expecting to be caught. "What about my mother?" I asked. "I have been supporting her financially, but there is no formal agreement. That support is entirely at your discretion," the attorney confirmed. "You have no legal obligation to continue it." With legal clarity established, I executed my plan methodically. First, I transferred half of the funds from our joint accounts to a new account in my name, only leaving Jessica's personal account untouched. This was fair and would hold up in court, according to my attorney. Next, I contacted my financial advisor to stop the automatic monthly transfers to my mother's account. I also called the property management company that handled her house, which was in my name, to inform them I would be selling the property and they should prepare the appropriate notices. I returned home long enough to pack essential documents, family heirlooms, and enough clothing for several weeks. Jessica was out, presumably with Jason or my mother, which made the process easier. Before leaving, I drafted 2 letters. The first was to Jessica outlining the evidence of her infidelity, the prenuptial clause she had violated, and my intention to file for divorce immediately. The second was to my mother, explaining that I was discontinuing all financial support effective immediately. I left both letters on the kitchen counter alongside Jessica's phone, which I had kept. I had forwarded the incriminating messages to my email as evidence and had no further use for her device. As a final step, I checked into a hotel under a business name and purchased a new phone with a new number. I informed my assistant that I would be working remotely indefinitely and that under no circumstances should Jessica or my mother be given any information about my whereabouts. The reactions came swiftly. My new phone, whose number I had shared only with my attorney and assistant, remained blissfully silent, but my email filled with increasingly desperate messages. From Jessica: "Harry, we need to talk about this. You cannot just walk away. Everything I own is in that house." From my mother: "This is not how I raised you to behave. You have responsibilities to your family. Call me immediately." My assistant reported that both women had come to my office, causing such a scene that security had to be called. Jessica had apparently been in tears, claiming we had simply had a misunderstanding. My mother had been more direct, demanding to know where I was, and insisting I had abandoned my obligations. 3 days into my self-imposed exile, I received the most revealing message of all, from an unknown email address that could only belong to Jason Harry. I want to apologize for my role in all this. I never intended for things to go this far with Jessica. She told me you two were essentially separated and just keeping up appearances. When she told me about the prenup yesterday, I realized she had not been honest with me either. I am stepping back from this situation entirely. So Jason had discovered what I already knew. Jessica had been playing both of us, looking for the better option, while trying to maintain her financial security. My mother's messages grew increasingly frantic as the reality of her situation set in. The property manager had served her with notice that the house would be listed for sale in 30 days. Her credit cards, which were authorized users on my accounts, had been canceled. "You cannot do this to me," she wrote. "After everything I sacrificed for you, this is how you repay me." By leaving me homeless, I did not respond to any of these messages. My attorney advised against any communication that could be misconstrued or used against me. The divorce proceedings would be my only formal interaction with either of them. 2 weeks after I left, my attorney informed me that Jessica had hired her own lawyer, but upon presentation of the evidence and the prenuptial agreement, they were now seeking only a nominal settlement. My mother had apparently tried to interject herself into the proceedings, but had been firmly rebuffed by the court, as she had no legal standing. I found a new apartment in a secured building, and began the process of rebuilding my life without the two women I had believed would always be in it. The betrayal still stung, but each day brought more clarity and conviction that I had made the right choice. 1 year has passed since I discovered the dual betrayal that changed my life. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago, with Jessica receiving only her personal belongings and a small settlement that my attorney assured me was less than I would have spent fighting a prolonged court battle. She is now working full-time at her school and living in a small apartment across town. According to mutual friends who still occasionally update me, her relationship with Jason ended shortly after my financial support did. Apparently, he was not interested in supporting her lifestyle either. My mother was forced to sell many of her possessions and move in with her sister in Michigan. She has sent numerous letters and emails alternating between apologies and accusations. When she was diagnosed with high blood pressure 3 months ago, I paid her medical bills anonymously but maintained my distance. As for me, I have found an unexpected peace in my new life. My business continues to thrive, and I have channeled my energy into expansion and philanthropy. I travel more than ever, having visited 10 countries in the past year alone. I have reconnected with old friends who had fallen by the wayside during my marriage and even cautiously begun dating again, though I am in no rush to enter another serious relationship. The most valuable lesson from this ordeal was learning the importance of boundaries. I had allowed both Jessica and my mother to become financially dependent on me without establishing clear expectations or limits. I had confused providing for someone with allowing them to use me. A therapist I started seeing helped me understand that my mother had installed certain programming in me from childhood, teaching me that my value was tied to what I could provide rather than who I was. This pattern made me vulnerable to Jessica, who recognized and exploited the same dynamic. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away, my therapist told me, during one particularly difficult session. Not as punishment, but as recognition that the relationship has become fundamentally unhealthy. I no longer view my decision to cut financial ties as an act of revenge, but as an act of self-preservation. Sometimes, the only way to break toxic patterns is to remove yourself entirely from the situation. Last week, I received a handwritten letter from my mother that was different from her previous communications. There were no demands or accusations, just a simple acknowledgement. I realize now that I taught you to provide, but never taught you to be loved for yourself. I am sorry for that, Harry. Whether this represents genuine growth or another manipulation, I cannot say. I have learned to accept uncertainty as part of life and to trust my instincts about people's true intentions. The two women who I thought loved me unconditionally were actually conditional in the extreme. Their affection lasted exactly as long as my financial support did. While that realization was painful, it was also liberating. I now understand that real love does not come with invoices, and genuine relationships are not transactional. Have you ever had to cut someone off for your own well-being, even when it broke your heart to do so? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more authentic stories about finding strength in difficult situations. And if you know someone who might benefit from this message, share this video with them. Remember, sometimes walking away is not giving up, but simply choosing a new path forward. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to set the boundaries you deserve in all your relationships.